Hello everyone, I'm Sheena Bolseco and today I am going to report about the study of human language and defining grammar. Now these two topics are interconnected with each other because when we say the study of human language, it also means that we have to study the grammatically correct forms of sentences in order to be understood. Now, first, we are going to discuss about the study of human language. Here, the study of human language talks about linguistics or is all about linguistics because when we say linguistics, it deals with human language and that includes deaf sign languages. And of course, language comes in verbal and non-verbal forms. So when we say verbal, it is how we speak the language. So in other term, we can say spoken language. And when we say nonverbal forms, well, that includes deaf sign languages, our body languages, the gestures that we use, and also includes written forms. Here, Giannetti and Adelman quoted that linguistics is highly diverse and interdisciplinary field dealing with the concrete details of physical acoustics to abstract logical argument from concise grammatical structure to rich observations on culture and society. So they are explaining or discussing that linguistics have a connection with every field. So that is what interdisciplinary field mean because linguistics is part of social linguistics, of psycholinguistics, and even math and psychology, right? So grammar, language is used there. So that's why it is interdisciplinary. And of course, it is highly diverse because our languages are different and it is because of the culture that we have and because of where we come from. Next is the different subfields of linguistics. We have 6 subfields, and these are phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Now we are going to discuss each of these subfields in order for us to understand it well. Okay, next. The first subfield that we are going to talk about is phonetics. Now, when we say phonetics, it is the study of how sounds are made, how they are classified, how they combine and interact with each other, and how they are perceived. Now, when we say phonetics, it is how we are going to articulate each letter of the alphabet. So we have vowels, right? We have diphthong vowels, we have long vowels, we have short vowels, and also we have the consonants. So we are going to articulate each of that, and that is the study of phonetics. So here, in the next slide, we are going to see the International Phonetic Alphabet or the IPA for further clarification. So this is the International Phonetic Alphabet or the IPA. As you can see, we have symbols there that corresponds on how we are going to say the exact sound of the letters in the alphabet. So we have the consonants, the vowels, and here we can see if it's either short or long, the diphthongs vowels, is it voiced or unvoiced? Okay. Now let's go to the second subfield, which is phonology. Phonology is the study of organization and structure of sounds, their distribution and conventions. So simply put, when we say phonology, it is how the letters are combined or organized or structured in a word with its corresponding sounds. So when we say cat, we say k, a, t. So that's it, cat. So that is the study of phonology. Now we are going to talk about the difference between phonetics and phonology. Actually, it also got me confused. Phonetics and phonology. However, when I researched more about it, I have figured out their difference. So when we say phonetics, it simply describes the articulatory and acoustic properties of speech sounds, while phonology studies how these sounds combine and how they change in combination, as well as which sounds can contrast to produce differences in meaning. So in a simpler way of explaining it, when we say phonetics, it is how you articulate each word individually. And when we say phonology, it is how you organize those speech sounds, those individual speech sounds, in order for it to form a word that is understood. Let's go to the third subfield, which is morphology. Morphology is the study of how words are formed, or the internal structure of words. Now, morphology deals with how each words that we utter are formed and structured. So the internal structure of words and how they are formed. For example, we have the word unlucky. So we may ask, where does this word come from? So we will start with the base word, which is the word lucky. Lucky is the base word, and we combine it with a prefix un, so we can say unlucky. Next is the base word pure. Now this time we add a suffix, which is li. So we can combine it and we can read it as purely. So that is how morphology works. This is just an example of prefix and suffix. Of course, in our other classes in the first sem, we have already learned about circumfix, infixes, and everything on how a word is formed. Okay, so that is morphology. Now let's go to the next subfield. So let's talk about syntax. This subfield of linguistics is the study of organization of words into sentences and how the sentences are understood. So meaning, after morphology, the words that we have formed or combined are now combined again into a sentence or to form a sentence. So for example, we have the grammatical rule of subject plus verb or linking verb plus object. So that's it. That is how we are going to form those words into sentences. And of course, how these sentences are understood. So that's part of syntax. Next one is semantics. Semantics is the study of meaning of language, or we can also say semantics is the literal meaning of the words, phrases, or sentences. For example, we can say, I saw a cat. That means you literally saw a cat. Okay, or we can say a word like cap or hat. That means a thing that you put on your head. So that is the literal meaning of the words or phrases or sentences. Then we can call it semantics. Last one is pragmatics. Now, when we say pragmatics, it is the study of meaning and how it can be interpreted in context, and how words are used and utilized in social interactions. So, simply put, when we say pragmatics, it does not only concern with the literal meaning of the word, but also the hidden meaning of the word or phrases or sentences that we used. For example, the sentence, I am cold. In literal meaning, or let's say that is semantics, in literal meaning, we say, I am cold, meaning that's it. You are cold. I feel cold, and that's it. So pragmatics now deals with the hidden meaning of that sentence. I am cold, meaning it may mean that you have a request to get a jacket, or you need a jacket, you need a sweater, or anything that will keep you warm. Okay, so that is pragmatics, the study of meaning and how it can be interpreted in context and also utilized in social interactions, because you want other people to feel and think of what you are thinking just basing on the words or sentences that you utter, not in a literal sense but in a hidden sense. And because of that, we are going to talk about the difference between semantics and pragmatics. Now, here, semantics is described as the study of the rule systems that determine the literal meanings of linguistic expressions without considering the context, as what I've explained to you earlier. And it only deals with grammar, vocabulary, and conceptual meaning of a word, the literal meaning of the word, the sentences, and the phrases that we use, while pragmatics analyzes the meaning in relation to the relevant context. Of course, again, the hidden meaning of the words and the phrases and the sentences that we speak. So now we are done discussing about the study of human language, which concerns about linguistics and its subfields. So we are going to move on to our second topic, which is defining grammar. So we may ask, what is grammar? Let's talk about that in our next slide. Grammar in Webster's dictionary is defined as the set of rules that explain how words are used in a language. So that means that when we say grammar, there is a set of rules that needs to be followed for it to be called grammatically correct sentence. So in linguistics, however, the word grammar means the mental grammar, innate language capacity that speakers have in their brains, and also the model or description of this mental grammar. So as I have looked up what is mental grammar, I have come across the linguist Noam Chomsky, and of course you already know him because we have studied about him. And he says, his studies says that the language is innate, meaning we already have that language within us even before we have the ability to speak it or to utter it. That's why it is called mental grammar, because it is still in our thoughts, in our minds, and not spoken out. Additionally, to say that a sentence is grammatical means that it follows the rules of both grammars. Conversely, or in contrary, an ungrammatical sentence does not conform to these rules. It's very self-explanatory, right? Okay, so this is an example. Him and I went to the park. This kind of sentence is an example of ungrammatical. So how should we do it for it to become a grammatically correct sentence? We can say, I went to the park with him, or we can also say, we went to the park together, right? I think that's better. Okay, so next we are going to talk about the two types of grammar in the next slide. Talk about the two types of grammar. We have the descriptive grammar and also the prescriptive grammar. Let's talk first about what is descriptive grammar. It describes the basic linguistic knowledge of a speaker or hearer. how a language is used and now how it should be used. It is the aim of linguistics to provide a formal statement of the speaker's grammar. So in other words, it is our basic linguistic knowledge, how we express ourselves, how we share our thoughts and opinions, regardless if it is grammatically correct or ungrammatically correct. But not the least is about prescriptive grammar. Prescriptive grammar describes how a language should or ought to be used. It tells us the speakers how they should speak and what rules they should follow. However, this grammar is bound to fail since language is constantly changing. Prescriptive grammar, in other sense, means that we have to follow the set of rules when it comes to grammar. So that means our sentences should follow the subject, the verb, the object, or other inflections in the sentences that we use. So here, prescriptive grammar is what we call grammatically correct sentences. Additionally, when it comes to writing as a nonverbal language, of course, it follows certain prescriptive rules of grammar, usage, and style that does not apply to spoken language. For example, we have punctuations. Okay, so we cannot say when we say or we use spoken language like, don't do that! Exclamation point. We cannot say that, right? But in writing, it is one rule. Okay, that is the rule that we have to follow because we have punctuations, we have to use punctuations, but when it is spoken, we are not going to say the word punctuation, or we are not going to say exclamation point. Okay, so that's it. Lastly, before I end my report, I'd like to say or read this one, that to understand the nature of language, one must understand the nature of grammar. As what I've said in the first slide, that they are interconnected. The study of the human language, its nature, and of course the grammar, the nature of grammar that we use is interconnected with each other. And of course, linguistics recognizes that all varieties of languages are equal. That is, no language or variety of a language is different in any other in a language sense, because language is language, right? Now, every grammar, therefore, in logical way, is capable of producing sets of sentences to express thoughts. Now, that would be all for my report. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have takeaways after this report. Thank you so much.